Hi, in this one we're going to be talking about how to work out loops manually, and for that we've taken an example. So the example is a question that gives us a challenge to write a certain type of a loop with an expected output as you see on your screen. So the question says, write a program in Python to print the first five numbers from 0, and the expected output is right here. So the first five numbers from 0 should actually be from 0 to 4. That was a quick mistake. But anyways, these are the first five numbers because this is number 1, this is 2, 3, 4, and finally this is the fifth number, right? So these are the first five numbers from 0. So on the left hand side, you can see that we have already pre-written a certain loop which is the solution to this problem. To understand this loop, let's take a look at the parts of this loop. The first one is the control variable, which is part 1. In this case, the name of our control variable is I. It could be anything. We've just chosen I as a convention. Its loops usually have I as their very first control variable. It could be anything. It could even be your name. But just for example's sake, we've taken I. So in this case, I equals 0. Then, while I is less than 5, this is our looping condition. So the looping condition says I is less than 5. Well, why is this our looping condition? This is our looping condition because when I equals 0, we want I equal to 1, I equal to 2, I equal to 3, and I equal to 4 for this whole loop to run 5 times, right? So that's why the looping condition is I is equal to 5, I is less than 5, because when the value of I equals 5, the loop stops. Yeah? Next, we have the body of the loop. Now, the body of the loop simply prints out the value of I. And then we have our update statement, which updates the value of I by one number, or it increments or increases the value of I by the number 1 at every iteration or repetition of the loop. So how this update statement works is it takes the previous value of I, it adds it with 1, and then stores it back in I. And that's how it updates the value of I. So let's take a look at this loop in action. So to do this, I'm simply going to take this loop right here, put it a little to the left so that we have some space. And well, let's just put this expected output a little to the right so we have some more space. Now, I'm just going to make a partition here which helps us work out the whole loop. And the first thing you do when you want to work out loops is just write the names of all the variables that you have. In this case, we have just one variable, which is I. Now, in the case of I, what happens first in the program is the program always executes in a top-down fashion. So the program first sees this line of code and it sees that the value of I equals 0. So directly it stores the value 0 in the place of I, right? Now once that happens, your program moves on to the next line, which is your looping condition, which is part 2. The looping condition says while I is less than 5. So it's going to check for this exact statement or this exact condition with the current value of I. Right now, is 0 less than 5? That is true, right? So since this is true, our program goes on inside the loop, which is into the body of the loop. Now the body of the loop is simply just one line of code, which is print I. So when the print I statement is executed, you see something on your output window. So we write O/P for output. And then when the print I is executed, it's simply going to print the value of I, which in this case is 0, right? So the first part of our output is already out. Now once the body of the loop is executed, your program moves on to the next section, which is your update statement. The update statement basically takes the previous value of I and makes that equal to the previous value of I plus 1. So what is 0 plus 1? It's equal to 1, and then that is stored inside the variable I. So now the new value of I would be 0 plus 1, which equals 1. And then we cut off the 0. So now the variable I stores the value 1 inside it. Once this is done, once the update statement has been executed, your program control moves back to the looping condition or to step 2. It does not go here. From here, it goes right here and then back in, right? So when your program is here again in your looping condition, what happens is it is going to be checking if I is again less than 5. Is it? Well, the value of I right now is 1, and if is 1 less than 5, that is again true. So if this is true, the loop again goes inside, prints out the value of I. The current value of I is 1, so your loop is going to print out 1. And then again, it moves on to the update statement. It updates the value of I, which is going to be 1 plus 1, that equals 2. So we cancel out 1, and now the new value or the updated value of I equals 2. So your loop similarly keeps running in this fashion constantly until the looping condition is false. So once the looping condition is false, your loop will break or stop. They're both the same thing. So let's still simulate this whole loop. So right now, the value of I equals 2. Now, when you're at your looping condition right here, it checks if 2 is less than 5. That is true. So it goes inside, it prints out I, which is again 2. Then it updates I by 1. So 2 becomes 3, and now the value of I is 3, or the number 3 is stored inside the I variable. Next, from the update statement, we go back to the looping condition. You check if 3 is less than 5. That is again true. And since that is true, you again print out 3, update 3. So 3 plus 1 is going to be 4. Cancel out 3, store the value 4 inside the I variable, and then move on from the update statement again to the looping condition. Check if 4 is less than 5. True. So again, you go inside the loop, print out the value of I, which is 4. Then you increment I. So 4 plus 1 is going to be 5. And now the value is of I is equal to 5, and your program is still here. So it has updated the value of I, and then it goes on to step 2. And then it checks if 5 is less than 5. Is it? 5 is not less than 5. Or you could just say that 5 is less than 5 is false. So now your looping condition is false. And what happens when your looping condition is false? Your loop breaks. So this is going to be the end of your loop, and this is going to be your final output right here, just the way we want it to be. Now, definitely this might be still a little complicated. I would give you a very quick new question to do by yourself, which would be to do this exact thing, but with the value 10 here. So how would you change this whole loop? What would you change in it? And what would this whole area look like? Do that and put it in the comments. If you have got any question, just let me know in the comments, and my team or I will definitely come and help you out in the best way possible. And obviously, you'll find the answer to this in the course resources. So don't worry about it. Until then, move on to the next video where we actually go to PyCharm and code this whole while loop out and many more while loops out for practice, so that you understand the concept of loops and, well, the while loop in particular before we move on to the for loop. Until then, just have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.